Kevin Jones, who's AARP Associate State Director, is in charge of all of our advocacy at the federal, state, and local level for AARP in New York City. So if you want to get involved or you want to know anything about our positions, he's your man. And I am Beth Finkel, and I'm the State Director for AARP New York, and I'm very, very pleased to be here tonight. You know, we sponsored tonight's event because older New Yorkers speak, and they make their opinions known, and their voices carry. Actually, the 50-plus voices carry probably more than any other generation, especially in elections. I don't always feel good to say that because I hope that younger generations will get out there and do their civic duty. But in the meantime, I have to say thank you to all of you older adults in the room because you do get out there. Here you are getting information so that you can make sure that you vote the way that is most appropriate for yourself. But here's what the interesting thing is. 50-plus voters decide elections at all levels of government. And you know why? Because they're the ones that come out the most. They're the most powerful and literally the most consistent voting bloc. And I'll just give you a little bit of data because I'm a data geek, so I love these numbers. Last June's primary, how many of you voted? Last June's primaries. It was a pretty big one, right? In that one, 68% of all voters were over the age of 50. But guess what? Right here in the Bronx, 79% of all the voters were 50 plus here in the Bronx. And you're not alone. Actually, out in Suffolk County, I think the number was well over 80%. So we're seeing this trend all over. Yeah, so that's not a majority. I mean, that's what we have to say is clearly a mandate. This is especially true in local elections and especially in off-year elections, and this is, no offense to anybody running, this is an off-year election. We don't have a presidential election, right? We don't have a state government running this time out. So it is really all about local politics. And that's why AARP in New York is here tonight, because we want to ensure that the 50-plus voice, all of your voices, percent, 94% said the percent said affordable housing was. Well, we all know that, right? I'm living in New York a lot of decades. It's never been any different. And 71% said they want the next mayor, and by extension, their local elected officials to prioritize programs that make it easier to age in place. And you know, actually the Bronx, which I know the candidates know this well, the Bronx is actually has per capita the oldest demographics in the city. So older adults want to stay in their homes. They've built these communities, and I'll tell you something, they don't want to be priced out of these communities. Nearly 1 in 4 also said ageism or age discrimination was a problem. And by the way, that went as low as people who are 35 and 40 years old are beginning to experience age discrimination in the workplace. So these are not fringe issues, right? These are kitchen table issues. And the candidates who are joining us tonight, I want to thank them for being here, for engaging directly with their community. And we encourage you to listen closely to what older voters are saying. And again, I know you all will speak up. Because if you want to win in 2025, you got to talk to older voters. You have to discuss affordability, aging in place, public safety, access to health care, pedestrian safety, right crossing the street is not a joke, and support for caregivers. So at AARP New York, we are committed to all older adults and make sure that they are empowered and ensure that their voice is heard. So, we're here in the Bronx. I want to hear from the Bronx. Well, thank you all and have a great discussion tonight.
Thank you, Beth.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Beth, and thank you everybody for coming out tonight.
And just to kick it off, I want to thank BronxNet. They're streaming this event live. So anyone who's interested, you can see a copy of that later, BronxNet.org. And also I'd like to thank our sponsor, AARP, for this event. Now, my name's Christian Murray. I'm the managing editor at Schneps Media and also editor-in-chief of the Bronx Times. I'll be moderating the event. I'll be moderating it with Emily Swanson. She's the senior reporter at Bronx Times. Tonight we're going to have two forums. The first forum is going to be the Democratic primary for Bronx Borough President. We've got the incumbent here, Vanessa Gibson, and the other candidate is Council Member Rafael Salamanca, who's the Council Member for District 17 and is the Chair of the Land Use Committee. Our second forum is going to be for the Democratic primary for the 13th District, which covers Northeast Queens, where we are now. The seat is currently held by Republican Council Member Christy Morato. Democratic candidates joining us tonight for District 13 are Shirley Albrol, David Diaz, and Joe Rivera. Now, we're looking forward to a robust, informative discussion with everybody, but I just want to get the ground rules down to begin with. So the candidates for Bronx Borough President are going to be questioned separately. Each candidate will be provided with 1 minute to introduce themselves, and then following that there'll be, up to 10 questions depending on time, with 2-minute responses.
Got it.
And then at the conclusion of those questions, you'll have a minute for to wrap it up. In the second forum, all the candidates are going to participate in a group discussion, and like the Borough President forum, it's going to be a 1-minute introduction, and then there's going to be a series of questions where the candidates have 2 minutes to answer those questions. And then at the end of the forum for the District 13, each candidate will have a minute too for a closing statement. To get the ball rolling, Emily is going to ask the first question. Oh yeah, sorry, yes. If you could make your opening statement, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you to Schneps Media, to AARP New York, Politics New York, and everyone for coming out. Welcome to Borough. I am Bronx Borough President Vanessa L. Gibson, and I'm excited to be here as I run for re-election to build upon what we have accomplished together. A Bronx where every family can do more than just get by, but they can simply get ahead. I offer leadership tonight that aligns with our community's priorities and needs. My story is a New York story. I was raised by a single parent in a working class family. I'm a daughter of an 1199 member. My mom graduated from high school and pushed me to go to college, and I was blessed with the chance to graduate from the University at Albany and CUNY Borough. And like so many, I understand the challenge of balancing work and internships and school. We're living in uncertain times when we're seeing so many of our protected programs and safety net programs at risk. I truly believe in the work that we've done under my leadership. And our democracy, as it is under attack, we need leadership that is committed, that is dedicated, driven, determined, and leadership that shows up. And that is me, your Bronx Borough President. And I look forward to tonight's conversation on my candidacy for Bronx Borough President. Thank you so much.
Okay, our first question. What do you see as the borough president's role in city politics? And how have you approached the difference between legislating and being a VP?
They can't hear you. Can you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry.
I heard that in the audience, right? Okay.
Sorry about that. What do you see as the borough president's role in city politics? And how have you approached the difference between legislating and being a VP?
Thank you. Well, I am also a former member of the New York State Assembly, New York City Council, and now 3 years as borough president. So I know state government, city government, and certainly being a borough president. The role of being borough president is to be the voice, the champion, and the advocate for the residents that you serve. It's to stand with families, to fight for families and children, and make sure that you advocate for policies. We have a capital budget that we also work on, and over 3 years, we've been able to invest $50 million to New York City public schools with a real focus on capital
school, making sure that every scholar has a chance to succeed. We've been able to lower our unemployment rate by 20%. So it means that Bronxites are working and bringing union jobs to our borough. The borough president's role is one that manages coalitions of organizations, of stakeholders, responsibility in making sure the borough is leading in everything good when it comes to many of the protected programs that we rely upon. You are a coalition builder, you are a bridge builder, you are a public servant, you represent a diverse borough like the Bronx, and you have to assemble all of your staff, your community boards, your advisory boards, task forces, everyone that are in your office and you have a role in, you have to make sure that is reflective of our diversity, which is our strength. So we've been very intentional in doing that. 600 appointments to the local community board, advisory boards, and making sure that we're adding talent and so many incredible people with experience, with the dedication to serve our borough in a real way. So most importantly, being borough president is being leader of the Bronx and making sure we shine a light on all the good people, the great places and organizations that make our borough the best place to live, to work, to raise our families, and to do business.
All right, terrific. Okay, the next question. Major crimes in the Bronx have recently increased, with young people often the perpetrators and victims. Now, what are you doing as borough president to reduce gun violence and improve public safety without sort of over-relying on aggressive policing?
Absolutely. Public safety is a fundamental right. Every resident across our borough should be safe. Their children, older adults, I call them teenagers, people with disabilities. We have to make sure that we are prioritizing public safety in a real way. What have I done? A couple of things. I've stood with anti-gun violence organizations to add money to their budget so we can focus on alternative programs and keep young people engaged with recreation and jobs, summer youth employment programs, and making sure that young people have real pathways to success. I've worked with organizations and advocates, NYPD, and many others, elected officials, in making sure that we can get illegal guns out of our community, including ghost guns. We've been very intentional working with the NYPD over 3 budgets in giving them thousands of dollars for the installation of security cameras, because we know that residents talk about that. We also work closely with the NYPD on ensuring that our borough, One Patrol, gets its fair share of new police officers that are graduating from the academy. We just had a class that graduated last week. They start tomorrow, and I'm very proud to say that we got the most out of any other patrol in the city. 238 new officers, because we know that residents want to see police. They don't want to see abusive policing, but you want to see the presence of police. We've also made sure we support the NYPD on expanding the mobile unit. That's the blue and white van that we have across the borough, because we know people want to see the visibility. I think it's a shared responsibility when we're talking about public safety. We all have a role to play. We are all credible messengers. We are all validators. We need to make sure that we are a part of the conversation, because if you're not a part of the solution, you're likely a part of the challenge. And we all play a role. NYPD cannot do this work without us, and we cannot do this work without them.
Okay. Many Bronx neighborhoods lack reliable public transit options. What improvements would you fight for in the MTA and/or the proposed Metro North plan that would better serve Bronx residents?
Thank you. We are excited about the Metro North expansion with access to Penn Station. It's a $3.2 billion project that will bring 4 stations across the East Bronx and Co-op City, in Hunts Point, Morris Park, and Parkchester Van Ness. And coupled with that, there's $500 million of capital investments within our communities to not only add housing, but also make sure we have new schools and recreation centers and community centers. We're excited about that. We want to add alternative modes of transportation. We know that there are many transit deserts we represent in the Bronx, and residents are forced to use their vehicles to get around. But if we are to be an equitable borough, then we have to look at different options. So we also believe in working with the City of New York and expanding ferry service. We've talked very intentionally about adding ferry service in the West Bronx along the Harlem River, as well as in City Island or potentially Orchard Beach for the east side, because the ferry stations we have now at Ferry Point Park and Soundview are beautiful. People use them. We love it. We also need to find ways to work with the MTA, and we're doing just that to accelerate on electrifying our buses, because we have some of the highest rates of asthma and too much truck traffic. We want to reduce carbon emissions and make sure that our buses are electrified. We also want to introduce more e-vehicles, electric vehicles, and have the appropriate charging stations as well. Now, I just started riding a bike 3 years ago, so I say if you like a bike, love it. I am a bike owner, I cycle, I have toured the Bronx. I think it's great for health and wellness and physical fitness, but we know that's not an option for everyone. We need to make sure that all of our subway stations are ADA accessible, fully accessible. We've been able to open several, and we have to do more. The most recent one was in Westchester Square, 3 new elevators and renovations at the subway station. That's amazing. Every station should be ADA accessible for people with disabilities and mobility issues, and we're doing that, and we will continue to champion accessibility and transportation access.
Right, thank you. Next question. How would you ensure that voices from all parts of the borough, including immigrant and undocumented communities, are heard and included in decision making?
Beautiful, great question. Everyone's voice matters, and as a representative of such a beautiful, diverse borough of different cultures and nationalities, we believe in the voice of our people. We have a Bronx Youth Council in our office. We have an LGBTQIA+ task force. We work with immigrant communities. We have a Muslim leaders task force, a Jewish leaders roundtable. We are very intentional about making sure that every community feels connected. We do that through community boards and the appointments we make. We have not only made sure that our community board application is digital, but it's in a second language. We're the only borough to do that, and we are very proud of that, to make sure that anyone that does not speak English as a primary language has access. Language access is important for us. We also do that by working with so many organizations that are supportive of our work through technology, through education, through recreation, through making sure that all of our advisory boards are representative of the communities they represent. Immigrant services, we've done plenty of Know Your Rights forums, particularly in this climate when we're seeing an attack and assault on undocumented individuals, immigrant families, women. I think this administration is anti-everything, and we're really focused on making sure that people feel safe, they feel heard, and they know that no matter what your status is, you have rights. So we've been working with African communities together. We've been working with MIMIC, with New York Immigration Coalition. We've been going into masjids, talking to all of our immigrant families and leaders, telling them to share this information with your clients, with your constituents, because we want to make sure that our communities are safe. We believe in legal access. We believe in making sure that people are supported, whether it's temporary protected status, whatever it is, a visa. We have been intentional in doing just that, having a job fair just for a population that needs support, and we look forward to doing that, because no matter what, this is the Bronx, and we represent everyone.
Thank you.
Next question. Do you support the rezoning plan for the Bally's Casino Hotel development in Throgsneck?
So the casino proposal, making the distinction between the Bally's Corporation and the Bally's Foundation that was able to save Preston High School, and 400 scholars will now graduate for the foreseeable future of 25 years. We have not taken a public position because we are on the Community Advisory Committee, but we're working closely with Committee Board 10, with all of the leaders in the Throgsneck community, the Business Improvement District, the merchants, many of our stakeholders that represent Throgsneck, and we're getting a lot of information. We're getting a lot of feedback, a lot of correspondence. I will say that the Bally's Corporation is looking to invest about $624 million in investments, including upgrades to Ferry Point Park, DOT work, adding a new overpass, making sure that we lighten up traffic on the local street and we contain it to the Hutchinson River Parkway. We know that this is something that many may want and many may not. I think about the jobs. I think about the union jobs. I think about a hotel, retail, commercial revitalization. I think about how we can stimulate our economy. A project of this scale, I acknowledge, will change a community, and we want to be very respectful of the character of any neighborhood, whether it's Throgs Neck or not. So we're taking our time. We're listening to residents and stakeholders and others that are weighing in. Unions have weighed in, union workers. We believe $625 million is great. That's the floor, not the ceiling. We're seeing what's happening in other parts of our city with other casino proposals, but I understand what residents are saying to me and homeowners. I absolutely get it. I also want to make sure that we don't turn down any project that is going to bring an infusion of capital that we need for our local parks and our local infrastructure. So with that, we still have every month. The process is underway. The park has to be alienated through state action, and so the state legislators are working on that. But for right now, we're still listening because we are really coalitions and we will take every consideration into impact.
All right. Okay, so the three council member have spoken out against oversaturation of shelters, methadone clinics, and similar services in the Bronx. What do you plan on doing to sort of like change this?
The fair share analysis that the city is required to do, they must adhere to that. There is a very inconsistent process that we've seen in the Bronx, where we have been saturated with social service programs and other transitional housing in certain communities, not all over the Bronx. That is unfair. What we need is real affordable housing, pathways to home ownership. We need to build up the middle class. We need to create even more jobs so we can lower our unemployment rate beyond the 6% that it is today. We need to be very clear, and we know as a borough, we've done a lot. We know that clients need help. People are living with substance abuse, drug addictions. They need harm reduction, drug treatment programs that work. We need to expand naloxone training because that has been proven to save lives and prevent overdose deaths. We've been working very closely with Lincoln Hospital, helping hospitals. We've allocated $6 million to build out a new opioid recovery and bridge clinic in Lincoln Hospital to streamline all of the existing programs in the South Bronx so that we don't have the saturation that many talk about. We have to do more work in the South Bronx because St. Mary's Park is littered with syringes and needles, and that's unacceptable. And we see that happening consistently. We believe the fair share. We want all of our 12 community boards to look at a 197A plan, which is a neighborhood study within their community. So we're asking our boards to weigh in. What development would you like to see? Where do you have areas of underutilized space, old school buildings that are vacant where we can transform into a repurposed space for community centers, for recreation centers, for workforce development training, housing. We have to do our part and work with the administration, but what we are not going to do is accept being dumped on in our borough when we need more programs that lift families up and not bring our borough down.
What are you hearing from Bronxites about the current Trump administration, and how would you respond and how will you respond going forward in your capacity as a city leader?
Sure. So since January, I think many of us recognize that it's been very challenging. It feels like a full-time job when we have resisting a lot of the attacks and assaults with executive orders. We are now seeing cultural institutions and many of our not-for-profits that have been notified from the federal government that their funding is cut, completely decimated, and it's going to hurt. We are seeing protected safety net programs like Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security under attack, and we know that hits at the heart of our community. Older adults, seniors, working class families that rely on these programs like Section 8. It matters. So what have we been doing? Organizing, talking to stakeholders and unions and elected officials about what we can do. How can we find additional revenue to make up for the cuts that we are seeing? We're not going to be distracted. We're not going to lose focus on what is important. When times are challenging, the people of the Bronx step up because we are resilient, we are strong, we fight the good fight. We've been knocked down many times and we've always gotten back up. We turn our pain into purpose and we turn now storm into strength. And I've seen that in this borough, and I'm proud of our work in 3 years as borough president, because we have to protect vulnerable communities that may not feel they have a voice. You have to be their voice, community. You have to be their validator. You have to be their credible messenger. That is what you do at our community boards, on our neighborhood advisory boards, as association leaders, civic organizations. We all have to play a role. This is a hands-on deck moment. The state just adopted their budget last week. We're now underway with the New York City budget with the City Council, and we look forward to making sure that we protect all of our youth programs, all of our parks, libraries, cultural institutions. We add more housing, more youth programs. We want to make sure that the budget in the city is reflective of our values. That's what a budget means. It reflects your blueprint and your values. So we will continue to stand up and resist and fight back and protect our people.
All right, thank you. What income level do you think is necessary to thrive in the Bronx? And how would you advocate for more ways for people to earn that amount?
Income inequality is a real challenge. It is a priority for us. When we launched the Future Forward Bronx initiative in our office, it's a partnership with the New York State Department of Labor. We've been very intentional in having job and career fairs at Borough Hall to focus on people with disabilities, the LGBT community, veterans, making sure that young people that are out of school, that don't have jobs, have career pathways. We've been working intentionally with our trades and labor unions, because we know apprenticeship programs lead to union jobs. And you may not have a pathway to college, but you certainly need to have a pathway to a career. We have to raise wages. So many of our families are living at or below the federal poverty level. They are rent burdened, spending more than 30% of their income towards rent, and they're struggling to make ends meet. It is not acceptable. They pay rent every month. They're working class, and they're still struggling. So we were a part of the Fight for 15 campaign to get our minimum wage of $15 an hour, but that's not enough. We have to keep going. That's why in all of these capital projects we support and add our name to, we are very intentional about local jobs, minority and women-owned businesses getting access to those contracts, lifting up families. Lowering the unemployment rate is great, but we have to make sure that we keep going. We have to create jobs. That's how you have disposable income that you can invest back in the community. We want to make sure that AMIs are reflective of our community. So the AMI structure is seriously outdated. It needs to be reformed, because many families in our community are less than $40,000 a year. But in other boroughs, it's much higher. We should not be judged by that. We need our own AMI, area median income in the Bronx, that's reflective of our needs. And then we need to also look at employers, giving them support, options where they can hire locally, and other incentives. And so we look forward to doing that, because we have to raise the wages in our borough so more families are achieving the middle class.
Thank you. Part of this next one you just addressed a little bit. Do you think that anything should change about the way the city calculates, classifies, and doles out affordable housing in the city? And what kind of impact do you think City of Yes will have?
My hope is the City of Yes will have a real impact on places like our borough when it comes to affordability, when it comes to mixed income housing, because we need to make sure we take care of families at the 30% AMI all the way up past 80%. We have many two-parent households that are working full-time, and they're either over income or they don't make enough. And so there are a lot of people that fall right in the center. When we talk about set-asides, we need to make sure that people coming from transitional housing have pathways to permanent housing. We need more housing for seniors. We don't have enough. We need more housing for veterans. We don't have enough. Housing for domestic violence survivors. We need housing for at-risk youth that are aging out of the foster care system. We have to take care of NYCHA. The largest public housing authority in our world is here in the city. We need to invest in NYCHA. We have houses and homes that are being warehoused in NYCHA. They're vacant because NYCHA has done nothing to renovate them so they can actually be rented. So what happens? Clients languish on a list. When we support housing, we support it in a real way that protects the community. It provides local opportunities, local community board residents, people with disabilities, municipal workers as well. But we also need pathways to home ownership. We have to get back to that first-time home buyer program. We have to make sure that there are more public and private partnerships. So if we were able to get the AMI reflective of our borough, you would see a significant acceleration of housing. Working with the city and the state and the federal government, we need to make sure that our tax incentives and other programs where you are incentivizing and driving the type of housing you want to see, and we've done that. We've invested millions of dollars in housing projects, and we're working on a number now, but I think of a building like Casa. We need to make sure that older adults have access to meals and healthy food choices. That is a big deal. My mom was a diabetic for 20 years before she was diagnosed with end-stage renal failure. Seniors are isolated, and outside of a senior center, they may not have that next meal. That's why we see them on food service meals and food pantries and soup kitchens, and that's not acceptable. We need to make sure that older adults are applying for SCREE and DREE and getting food stamps and other programs that they are eligible for. They just need assistance. We have to take care of older adults. They have taken care of us, they've had our backs, and now we have to have their backs. That's what AARP does. That's what Live On New York does. We want to make sure that they have all the meals they need, all the access to healthy food, the affordable housing, so that they can continue to age in place. And they also need to be digitally connected. They need access to technology, computer labs, right? The iPhones, the smart boards, they need computers, they need all of that. And so over the next 4 years, you're going to see us work very intentionally on job growth, economic development, creating more jobs, more pathways to college and careers, more investment in schools and colleges and universities, more capital going into our borough, more opportunities to deal with climate change. You saw me in the South Bronx. I was planting trees because we have some of the lowest tree canopy coverage in this city. We need to plant trees. We need to make sure the Parks Department and all the agencies are fully funded. So you're going to see us working. We've shown up all the time, and we will keep showing up, not just election time.
Thank you very much. If you could just give you a 1-minute closing statement, that'd be great. Thanks.
Sure. So I want to thank you again for having us tonight and me allowing a chance to talk about the work we've done. Frankly put, brothers and sisters, family, I am here to serve. I've shown up all the time as the assembly member, council member, and now borough president. I believe our borough needs the consistent and steady leadership that we have demonstrated over these last 3 years. Together, we have lowered the unemployment rate. We've brought good paying jobs to our borough. We revitalized our commercial corridors, supporting small businesses in a real way, which are the economic engines of our borough. We created opportunities to bring healthy food to our borough, to deal with health equity and health justice. I call it food justice. We've leveled the playing field when it comes to maternal health, which is deeply personal to me. We are going to build the first Bronx Birthing Center in our borough because it's important for us. So I hope to get your vote. I ask for your vote in the Democratic primary. I hope you will vote for me as your number 1. I thank you so much for your time. Gracias a todos. Thank you so much. We look forward to the work ahead.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for attending tonight.
Thank you.
So we're looking for the council member. Very much for coming tonight. So just to start off, we're going to provide you with 1 minute to introduce yourself, and then we're going to have a series of questions with 2 minutes to answer, each question. So go ahead and welcome tonight.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be here today. My name is Rafael Salamanca Jr., and I'm a New York City Council member for the South Bronx. I'm a former district manager for Bronx Community Board number 2, and I'm running for Bronx Borough President because I feel that our borough needs leadership that delivers. It needs a manager, and our borough at this moment is being mismanaged. In my time in office in the last 15 years in public service and in the last 9 years as a New York City Council member, I'm proud to say that I've been able to bring over $400 million of capital investments to the South Bronx. $35 million to my schools, $30 million to my parks. I've been able to approve over 10,000 units of 100% affordable housing, of low-income housing and housing for the working class families for my residents in the borough of the Bronx. But the reality is that our current leadership is failing us. When you walk around the borough of the Bronx, our streets are dirty, our public safety is in chaos, and we need a leader that can manage this borough and move us forward, and that is what I bring to the table.
Okay, first question. What do you see as the borough president's role in city politics? And how would you approach the difference between legislating and being a BP?
Well, I think that the borough president, yes, they are the spokesperson. Many folks think that they're the cheerleader for the borough. But the reality is that the borough president has a platform. They have a bully pulpit in which they can utilize their bully pulpit to address issues in which they cannot legislate, because only the city council can legislate. I also think that the borough president has the ability to move the economy forward, working with organizations or businesses, identifying key areas in which we can improve and stimulate the economy. I also think that the borough president has the responsibility of community boards and utilizing the district managers and the community boards individually so that you can address the quality of life issues that are occurring in the borough of the Bronx. See, as I'm walking around and I'm door knocking and I'm traveling, the quality of life issues that's happening in Draz Neck or in Riverdale are very different than the quality of life issues that are occurring in the South Bronx or in the west side of the Bronx. And so what I will do as a borough president, because there are many issues that are occurring in the borough of the Bronx, I will convert Borough Hall into a mini city hall. Currently, right now, there is no deputy borough president, but historically, there's always been a deputy borough president. What my office will do is that I will have multiple deputy borough presidents to help me address the different quality of life issues that we have, whether they're public safety, education, seniors, parks, or so on and so forth.
All right, thank you very much. This deals with quality of life issues, this question. Major crimes in the Bronx have recently increased, with young people often the perpetrators and the victims. What would you do as Borough President to reduce gun violence and improve public safety without over-relying on aggressive policing?
Well, I have a bill in the New York City Council that would have a monthly gun buyback program. And in order to do this, I strongly believe that we need to give the district attorneys the resources that they need so that they can provide that service in terms so we can get these guns off the streets. What we have been seeing in the borough of the Bronx is youth on youth crime. Just this Monday, we saw that a 16-year-old was killed by a 14-year-old, and it happened in my district. On Friday, we're going to be walking with the family where there was a 11-year-old 3 years ago this Friday that was struck by a bullet when she was going in to get her nails. In my time in the council, I've had four kids, I call them kids, 16 years or younger, who have been struck by gun violence. What we need is real state-of-the-art community centers in every four corners of the borough of the Bronx. What I've done in my time in the council, when I approved La Central, I was able to negotiate bringing in the Y to the South Bronx. And for those individuals that could not afford it economically, we ensured that we provided a sliding fee scale. On 172nd Street and Hoe Avenue, they were going to close the Madison Square Boys and Girls Club. So what did I do? I worked with them and ensured that we kept it open. And we worked with an organization called Common Point that came in and they kept the services open. Back in the 70s, if any of you were here in the 70s and 80s, there was gang violence where they were fighting against one another. Well, back then, there was something called the Fort Apache Boxing Gym. And in 2010, that boxing gym was closed. Well, moving fast forward as a New York City Council member, I've been able to negotiate, and we're bringing back the Fort Apache Boxing Gym and Community Center to the community. So it's utilizing your resources, your experience, and your knowledge to bring these services back and getting our kids off the streets and into these community center service and providing them with services.
All right, thank you. Many Bronx neighborhoods lack reliable public transit options. What improvements would you fight for in the MTA and/or the proposed Metro North plan that would better serve Bronx residents?
Well, my district is what I would call transit rich. But that's also a challenge for us because we have the highways that are driving through our communities, which is affecting our environment. But we also have, you have access to public transportation in my district. What I've done as a district manager, because I also represent the Hunts Point, I represent Hunts Point, but as a DM, we had a swimming pool at the end of the Hunts Point community. Well, I negotiated and I was able to get the BX46 there so that the community has access to the floating lady pool. In my time in the council and as land use chair, I negotiated in the New York City Council the rezoning for the Metro North stations that we were getting, the 4 Metro North stations that we're getting in the South Bronx. In my time in the council, I worked with the governor's office, and we were able to get $1.6 billion for the redesign. We redesigned the Sheridan Expressway to the Sheridan Boulevard. And within that plan, we were able to get ramps in and out of the Hunts Point community. As I'm traveling throughout the borough of the Bronx, I'm noticing that there are many transit deserts. There are transit deserts in Co-op City. There are transit deserts in getting in and out of City Island. And there are many ideas. For example, in City Island, I've been talking to many businesses and many folks. Well, how do we bring in responsible transportation? You have access for the ferries, the waterways, where we can transport individuals without it really affecting our environment. And so I think that's an ongoing conversation. And what I would do as a borough president, I would utilize my community boards and district managers so that we can figure out and identify locations where there are transit deserts and how we can work with state government so that we can address those transportation issues that they're having.
All right, thank you. This sort of touches on that a little bit. How would you ensure that voices from all parts of the borough, including immigrant and undocumented communities, are heard and included in decision making?
Well, my office, I can tell you that during this campaign, we're going to have listening tours. where we're going to have tours throughout the district in certain parts of the community to figure out what are the issues that matter to them the most that are not being heard. And those listening tours are going to be open to the public. And there's a commitment from me that I will continue those listening tours as your borough president. I consider that everyone should be treated equally, regardless of your immigration status or regardless of your political status here in the borough of the Bronx, because we are one Bronx. We are all Bronxites, and we all want the same thing, right? We want affordable housing, we want clean streets, and we want safe streets. And the only way to do that is by listening, not talking to folks, but listening to folks and getting their ideas as to how we can better improve the borough of the Bronx. And so to answer that question, there's a commitment that everyone will be heard as a borough president.
Okay, thank you. Next, do you support the rezoning plan for the Bally's Casino Hotel development in Throgsneck?
All right. Well, I'm the chairman of the Land Use Committee, and we know that will be coming up for a vote soon. As I've been door knocking and I've been meeting with folks, I can tell you that the community is divided on this plan. There are pros and there are cons to this plan. The pros are the economic development, the opportunity for employment, the opportunity for labor jobs in this plan. The cons for residents that live in the community is the traffic, the infrastructure, the people coming into your community, the risk of there being more crime, and what's happening. And so I have not taken a position on this. I know that at the end of the month, we're going to vote on the park alienation. And when we vote on that, that's not voting to approve the plan. That just allows that the Bally's Casino just for its process to continue. The final approval will happen sometime in July. But at the moment, I have not taken a position, and I know that the local council member has not taken a position yet. And so I've been in constant communication with the local council member on what's going to come next in terms of this decision that we have to make in the council.
Okay, great. Now, both you and the incumbent, Vanessa Gibson, have spoken out against what you've called an oversaturation of shelters, methadone clinics, and similar services in the Bronx. What would you do as borough president to change this?
I'm living it. I'm living it. When I came into the council, I can tell you that my predecessors before me allowed too many homeless shelters to open up in the South Bronx. Too many methadone clinics or substance abuse programs in the South Bronx. In my district, I have over 60 homeless shelters in my district alone, where I'm constantly fighting back the de Blasio administration and this administration in terms of not allowing more homeless shelters to come into our communities. On 149th Street and 3rd Avenue, if you all have gone there, right, it's disappointing to see what's happening there. But I'm going to explain why we have that mess there. We have over 20 non-for-profits providing substance abuse services and needle exchange programs on 149th Street and 3rd Avenue. And on top of that, we have illegal drug dealing that's happening there on 149th Street and 3rd Avenue. So to be clear here, and I'm very passionate about this because I've been working on this issue for the last 9 years. I've been working with non-for-profits. I've allocated $5 million to try to address this issue. We instituted a peer-on-peer program where former users are going out in the street and they're trying to convince the current users that are there that they can change their lives around because they are that example. Well, what we've done is that we've worked with the administration and we've worked with NYPD where they're bringing in a specialized division, a quality of life division, to try to address those issues that are occurring there. But the reality is that there has to be fair share. And the borough of the Bronx cannot continue to carry the burden of homelessness and the burden of the opioid use in this borough. Other communities and other boroughs need to carry that burden. We are carrying more homeless families in the borough of the Bronx than actually live in the borough of the Bronx. And so as your borough president, I will continue to advocate against this as I've done as a New York City council member.
What are you hearing from Bronxites about the current Trump administration, and how would you respond in your capacity as a city leader?
Bronxites are scared. they're scared. The risk of especially seniors losing your Social Security, your Medicaid, your Medicare. They're scared. I'm speaking to many of my constituents. They're concerned about women's reproductive rights being lost. Many are scared that they will be confused with someone who's here undocumented and you'll be shipped off to Venezuela. That's a real fear that we have here. When everyone's on social media and when you're seeing these ICE officers walking around with their mask on, right, just picking up people in the street, that fear that can happen to you is a real fear. And so what I recommend everyone does, and what we've done, is that we've had info sessions on Know Your Rights, but I highly recommend that you are in constant communication with your Congress people. We have fighters up in Washington, D.C., right? We have a Congresswoman, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who's not scared to speak up. We have Congressman Richie Torres, who's not scared to speak up. And we have Congressman Adriano Espaillat, who's not scared to speak up. Utilize their services, reach out to them to ensure that you understand what's actually happening and they know what's happening here in the borough of the Bronx so that they can continue to advocate for us in Washington.
All right, terrific. Can people hear? Yeah, okay. What income level do you think is necessary to thrive in the Bronx? And how would you advocate for more ways for people to earn that amount?
Well, I can tell you right now that $20 an hour is not enough for you to survive in the city of New York, and less in the borough of the Bronx. I don't think $25 an hour is enough for you to survive here. Just the other day I went shopping, and for a dozen eggs I paid like $18. It's irresponsible, and it's a fear that families have on a daily basis. When we're talking about food insecurity, many families are fearful that they need to figure out whether I eat healthy and my funds last the entire month, or I eat unhealthy and I'm able to eat for the entire month. And so that trickles down, right, to our health disparities in the borough of the Bronx, and why we have obesity, hypertension, and all these other health disparities that are affecting us. I think that city government must really work with the federal government, number one, raising the federal minimum wage. I know that in the borough of the Bronx, I believe it's about $15 or $17 an hour, the minimum wage, but that's not enough. And that is why we are working in city government to ensure that we are subsidizing many of these programs so that families can live in peace and not have to worry about not having the resources that they need for their families.
Thank you. Is this microphone on? I felt like people couldn't hear. Is this pretty good? Okay. I'll just speak up loudly. Here, I'll just turn this on. Okay. Do you think anything should change about the way the city calculates, classifies, and doles out affordable housing in the city? And what kind of impact do you think City of Yes will have?
Well, going back to the fair share process, and I want to be clear here, right? When I speak about building and approving 10,000 units of 100% affordable housing, that philosophy may not be, it's not a one size fits all. I also believe in protecting the character of neighborhoods, where we have 1 or 2 or 3 family homes. The fear of putting in a 6, 7, or 8-story building in the middle of your block is a real fear, right? But we can also not be a community, or we cannot be a NIMBYism. There is a housing crisis in the city of New York. And what I've encouraged communities that have very low density, try to identify areas where we can build more housing for New Yorkers. When we're talking about housing, we also have to focus on home ownership. Generational wealth. Figuring out ways how we could bring the Michelama programs back. This is important for us because these are an opportunity. So as we have children, we can give this to our children as they grow. And so housing is a very tough conversation as I'm going around throughout the borough of the Bronx and having conversations with individuals. And the city of yes is extremely complicated. But just know that we voted on the city of yes so that we can ease some of the complicated zoning practices that we have so that we can build housing for individuals that are in the homeless shelter that are ready for independent living. And that's what we lack, and that's what we must continue to drive for.
All right. So this is the last question before your closing statement, council member. Over the next 4 years, what specific policies or initiatives would you implement to make New York City a more livable place for people as they age, particularly in areas such as transportation, public safety, and accessible public spaces?
Well, as individuals age, we have to have certain conversations in terms. What I've seen in my time in the council and as I've door knocked, there are many individuals that are aging that are living alone and are living in 2, 3, even 4-bedroom apartments. That is not conducive for them. And so as we're moving forward and we're building in the city of New York, we have to ensure that we're also building for individuals that are aging. I'm proud to say that in that 10,000 units of housing that I've built in my community, 1,500 of it has been for senior housing. And we've lowered the age for senior housing. Now it's 55 and over. And I tell this to many folks and they look at me like, I'm not a senior, but we just wanted to ensure that we're providing housing for those that continue to age. Well, we've also seen when you come to my playgrounds, we're making them suitable for all ages. I'm proud to say that in my time in the council, I've been able to bring over $30 million to my playgrounds. 90% of my playgrounds in the South Bronx, if you don't believe me, go to the South Bronx, have been redone. And the model that we've used the model that we want to build parks for our toddlers, our young adults, and we also want to have a safe space for adults and seniors so that they can thrive and that they can also take advantage of these green spaces. When we're talking about transportation, again, it's important that the leader of the borough works with your local elected officials, but also works with your community boards, because they're the ones that can help you identify pockets that may feel that are being ignored, especially our most vulnerable population who many times don't have a voice, and those are our seniors.
All right, thank you. Just 1 minute to sort of a closing statement, and thank you for attending.
I want to, again, thank you all for this opportunity. The Bronx is ready for much more than just promises. We're ready for progress. And I've spent my entire life in public service, not really chasing headlines, but delivering for the working families. But think about this a little bit. Our borough is struggling. Our streets are dirty. If you saw on News 12 recently, there's a study. The borough of the Bronx is the dirtiest borough out of all 5 boroughs, and we need to do better. When my son leaves to school in the morning, I fear that he's not going to come home. And on Monday, that mother that lost that 16-year-old, that fear came to a reality. And so these are tough conversations that we need to have. And the borough president, you're just not a voice. You have the ability to bring change. And so I promise the borough, how am I going to bring change? I'm going to manage this borough. And I'm going to manage this borough by bringing in on deputy borough presidents that will be responsible for a portfolio to ensure that we're bringing real results to the borough of the Bronx.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes our Borough President Forum. We're about to kick off our Council District 13 Forum. So I guess once they come in, we'll kick it off.
El invitado, ya.
Check, check. Check 1 2. Check, check, check. Check 1 2. Check, check, check. Check 1 2. Check. Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Pues llévate este, es más dos aquí. Llévate este es el de, pone este a la derecha. ¿Ah? 1 2.
Do I have to hold the mic or can folks hear me?
I suggest holding the
Hold the
mic.
mic, okay. Okay, terrific. Hi, my name is Shirley Aldebol. I'm a single mom, a public school parent. I've been a labor leader and worked in the labor movement as an organizer for nearly four decades. I was born and raised right here in the Bronx. My family lived in this district for 45 years. And I've been raising my son here in the Throgsneck section of the district. And I've seen over the years how the American dream that my family has lived has become out of reach for so many working families. I'm running for city council because it's time to stand up to skyrocketing housing costs, deteriorating quality of life in our communities, and our communities need a true advocate with a proven track record of fighting and winning for working families in New York City, the Bronx, and right here in this district. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, David, your minute.
All right. Well, first off, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, AARP for hosting. I will say in full transparency, it was probably one of the most saddest letters that I've gotten sent to me in my name was the welcome into the AARP community because of I had just hit that age. So, but I'm running for city council because of our neighborhoods deserve leadership that is present, accountable, fighting for us, and not just during election time, but every single day. For too long, our district has been ignored. Career politicians have put self-interest before community needs. I'm running to change that. If elected, I'll focus on the basics that matter: cleaner streets, safer blocks, better public schools, and meaningful investments in our working families, seniors, and small businesses. I'll fight for transparency in government and for real solutions, issues like flooding, food insecurity, and housing affordability. I'm ready to serve and show up for the East Bronx for 13 because this is our home and we deserve better. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Joel, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joel Rivera, and nationally, our country has been more divided than ever. And unfortunately, the 13th has been infected by what's happening nationally. There's more division in the 13th than ever, and it's not done by accident, it's done intentionally. They have Republicans fighting Democrats, Democrats fighting conservatives, Italians fighting Irish, Puerto Ricans fighting Dominicans, and African Americans fighting Africans and Caribbeans. And we're the ones that lose. We need one Bronx, one 13th. We need to come together as a community and work together and stop all the nonsense. We need to make sure that the city and the Bronx doesn't forget about hardworking Bronx residents and homeowners. As I always say, we're too poor to be rich. We don't qualify for the millionaire loopholes that Elon Musk and Donald Trump qualify for, but then we're too rich to be poor. We don't qualify for, a lot of us, public assistance or Section 8. Half our check gets taken out and we don't have anything to show for it. It's time to bring common sense back to government and work together and have one community and have people that live in the community decide what happens in that community.
All right, thank you, Joel.
All right. For these questions, we will alternate who answers first, but just course through everyone. So Shirley, you'll take this one first. In the last election, Christy Marmorato ran on a tough on crime and anti-upzoning message. What is your message?
Well, my message is that we need affordable housing in this district. We need to build up our working class and build a middle class in this district. Too many working class families, too many middle class families are leaving the district because they can't afford to live here. That's not sustainable. There's a rising crime and quality of life issues that haven't been addressed, and we need to address them. Not by over-policing, but finding common sense solutions and getting to the root of why crime is happening in our city and in our district.
Yeah, so the sitting council member loves to operate from a place of fear, which I think is so divisive and so unnecessary for this community. I lived in this community for 51 years in this district. I was born in the Bronx, Bronxite. There are lots of different people that come from all different areas, and I think that is what that's what makes this district so wonderful, right? We have such a diverse community, but to operate from a place of fear, to try and pit people against each other, to use language that criticizes one group of people that's not how you go about this. Unfortunately, that's not how you lead, that's not how you govern, and that's not what I think is good for this community at all.
Less than 5% of all communities commit 100% of the crime. Let me say it again. Less than 5% of a community commits 100% of the crime. Why am I saying that? I believe on tough policing, but we need to focus on the 5% that are committing crimes. The gang members, the people that are breaking into our cars, the people that are affecting our quality of life. Just because you wear a hoodie and like hip hop doesn't make you a criminal. I like hip hop. I wear hoodies, especially on rainy days. So we need to educate those members in our community that have biases and think certain things that are inaccurate. And then we need to prosecute criminals and people that affect our quality of life. Unlike Shirley, I don't know a lot of middle-class people that are moving out of our area. All the middle-class people that I know that are homeowners love our area. What we're afraid of is all these shelters, valleys, upzoning, and all these projects that are going to change the reality of our community. I'm against upzoning. I think it's a land grab for Fortune Society and other companies trying to set up shop for when Rikers closes so they could ease their way into our community. Do we need to support the least of these? I worked 10 years for NICA, and I've moved 300 families out of shelters into permanent housing. So I believe in that. But it has to be done on a case-by-case basis based on the neighborhood. Do we need development? Yes, but not pushed down our throat by developers that are getting wealthy. I'm a developer. And the developers will tell you, oh, it's quality of life. That's a lie. The more units you build, the more money you get. So they be trying to sell us dreams, and they're trying to change the fabric of our community. And I won't allow it, and the members of the 13th won't allow it. We like our community. This is our slice of the American dream, and we don't want it to change.
All right, thank you. David, this question starts with David, and then we go round with Shirley, toward Shirley. This is the question. Do you consider yourself a moderate or progressive Democrat or some other descriptor? And how would you work with people of all political positions in the district and the council?
It's funny that because I think we are in a time where it's no longer left or right, it is between right and wrong, right? There are things that have to get done, and we have issues that we are facing that need to get done. So whether you want to call me a progressive or moderate or conservative, I don't think helps at all. What helps is what ideas that we can bring to the table to face the challenges that this community has. We have skyrocketing rates. Our streets don't feel as safe as they should. We have climate issues, right? So I don't think it helps to kind of pin me into one or the other. I think we have to figure out the solutions from talking with people. Every community is different, right? The things that matter for Throgs Neck the issues are different for Morris Park and vice versa for City Island, where I live now, and Throgs Neck. So we have to be able to sit and talk to everyone in the community and figure out what the solutions are. What is the best way forward? Well, and it doesn't matter whether you're progressive, moderate, or conservative. It does not matter.
Okay, Joel, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. I think Chris Rock said it best. There was a a piece where he came out. He said, I'm moderate on certain issues, I'm progressive on other issues, and I'm conservative, depending on the issue. But if I had to classify myself, I unapologetically classify myself as a moderate conservative Democrat. I've grown up with a pastor that's probably one of the most progressive people in New York City and New York State. So I definitely plan to work with the Progressive Caucus. I plan to work with anybody. I think these titles are all used as distraction, and the real issue is that there's not common sense in government. I worked for a shelter, under a shelter system for 10 years, and they told the people, get a good job, get off welfare. I did that. It was very difficult. And the next day they told them, you lost your housing subsidy because you make $2 over the limit of the amount of money that you make. So in government, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. A lot of our policies don't make sense, and everybody's keeping their employment, keeping their jobs, and keeping the status quo, and the people that are suffering are the community. And that's why, if you look, most people are frustrated with the typical parties. They're frustrated with the Democratic Party based on what happened in this district. A lot of people are upset with the Republican Party and the tariffs and everything else that's taking place. But that's all a distraction. What they don't tell us, the 10 wealthiest families in this country meet with the Democratic nominee and Republican nominee 1 week before they're sworn in. So you know who controls this country? Corporations, lobbyists. And then they sell us this dream and try to put us into these categories so that we can fight and be distracted and not see what's going on in our community. That needs to stop. We need to work together. We all want the same thing: a safe community, affordable housing, safety for our children, quality education. But do we focus on that? No. We're busy fighting over the nonsense that goes on in our community, and the distractions work. That's got to stop. We need common sense in government, and we need to work together collectively.
All right, thank you, Joel. Shirley, this is the same question.
So I see myself as a problem solver. I see myself as someone who knows how to negotiate, knows how to bring resources that are needed. I see myself as someone who is going to, bring the necessary resources that are needed to make the changes in this community that our people are starving for. We need affordable housing. We need to invest in our schools. We need to invest in parks. We need to invest in programs for youth. We need to invest in public safety. We need to invest in mental health. There are a lot of things that we have to invest in this community, in this district, that we're not getting. Why? Because there's a Republican incumbent who is incapable of negotiating with Democrats, with other elected officials, to bring the resource. She's leaving a lot of money on the table. That's what we say in bargaining. We aren't leaving any money on the table. And, I don't believe in leaving money on the table when it comes to my community, when it comes to this district. I've been a negotiator. I have a proven track record of negotiating contracts, stood toe-to-toe against landlords, developers, to make sure that working people are paid. They have fought for health care benefits, for pensions, so that when people retire, they can retire with dignity. And those are the things that I believe in and that I will fight for if I'm in the city council.
Okay, thank you. Joelle, we'll start with this next question. So District 13 has ranked relatively low in affordable housing production over the past 10 years, ranked 38th out of the 51 districts, according to the New York Housing Conference, whereas other Bronx districts have topped the list. And so would you seek to change this, and if so, how?
I think the real issue with affordable housing is that they use a scale to determine what's affordable. And if you ask the actual Bronx resident, it's not affordable. So I'm not going to support projects that come in under the disguise of affordable housing, but then a studio's $3,000. That's not affordable. So the reality is, like I said before, as a developer, I make a lot of money off these development projects. I want to make sure that they're programs that actually make sense and that could be affordable and affect people. Same thing with shelters. In that area, maybe you need to have scatter sites or smaller locations. Same thing with an animal shelter. Maybe we turn a 3-family home into an animal shelter for that area because there's a big love for animals in the 13th. But we need to do things that make common sense. And the status quo, I'm their worst nightmare. I was vice chair of county. I ran and worked with every single party. I worked with all the unions. So I know what's said behind closed doors. And I'm exposing that. And that's the only reason I'm running. I was very happy as a retired businessman, but I saw what was happening in the city and it made me almost throw up. I was disgusted with the type of policies and the way the city's been being run and the decisions that are being made. So we need to make common sense decisions. And if we're gonna have affordable housing and we're gonna go through all this money and give these big companies tax loopholes like 70/30s, let's make sure that it's actually affordable. And by the way, my family is building a new charter school with 100 units of affordable housing that's in the works. I have my own nonprofit working with youth. So a lot of candidates are career politicians. They need a job. They're looking to run for their next office, but they're not really community servants. I consider myself a community activist and a community servant. And that will be my job once elected to represent the 13th.
So there are several things. We have to build more affordable housing, but we have to do it in a way that's responsible and takes into account, the needs and the services to support that affordable housing. We also need to invest in NYCHA. We have a lot of NYCHA housing here, and quite frankly, it's falling apart. So in the city council, we have oversight. We can, work with NYCHA, with HUD to make sure that the funding is available so that apartments can be renovated and people could actually live in those apartments. And we have to make, NYCHA housing more livable for people. I don't agree with building more shelters. We need to build more housing. We need to build transitional housing. We need to build supportive housing. We need to build, housing for, working families and middle-income families that they can afford. And so those are some of the issues that we need to address in order to create more housing stock here, particularly in this district that hasn't built a lot of affordable housing. In the last decade, I think we haven't built any new housing in the last decade. So, there's a lot to be done to resolve this housing crisis, particularly in this district.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question? Because, yeah.
So it was, District 13 has had a relatively low affordable housing production over the past 10 years, whereas other Bronx districts have topped the list. And so would you seek to change this? And if so, how?
No, absolutely. We have a crisis, right, of affordable housing. And I know we've seen in buildings being built right in the middle of, some areas that maybe people were not, comfortable with, or because they're surrounded by, homeowners, things of that nature. So number one, yes, we need affordable housing, but it has to be true affordable housing. And the only way you do that is by making sure that when you are, negotiating these developments, is that you are holding the developer accountable. You're making sure that you're building units that will remain affordable, and like others had said, that rents are not $3,000 for a studio, because I do not know who that is affordable for. It's not for me, for sure. So we have to make sure that we are holding landlords accountable and that's why it's so important that we do have a seat at the table, right? And we have to make sure that when we are building these units, that we are doing it where it is not changing the character of our neighborhoods. I know that is a fear for many, but we do have to change. We have to be able to embrace some of that change, but making sure that we have a seat at the table, we're negotiating, and we are making sure that we are making the best decisions based on what the community needs are, what the community wants are. That's it.
Okay, this question is for you, Shirley. And then, I'm going to start with you. There was a red wave of sorts in the national election in 2024. How do you convince voters that electing a Democrat is in their best interests?
Well, I think I need to tell people that, electing me is in their best interest. Again, we need someone in this district who is going to be able to work. The majority of the city council, whether people like it or not, are Democratic. And so you need someone, who's going to be able to work within, the city council and work with our elected officials at the state level and even at the federal level to get things done and to be able to get the resources that, as I said before, there are too many resources that are being left at the table because the current Republican incumbent is not able to negotiate everything that we deserve in this district, to bring the resources that we need to have a better quality of life, to have more better public safety, to have more affordable housing. Those things, that money is being left on the table. And so a Democrat like myself, who can work with other Democrats in the city council, and, even with the mayor, if the mayor is a Democrat or Republican, to be able to bring the resources that this district needs, desperately needs, to deal with all the issues that we have in front of us.
Go ahead, David.
So, I think this may be the first time that Shirley and I actually disagree on something, but I do feel that I would be the best be able to serve this district, okay? But in all seriousness, it's right. We absolutely need a Democrat in that seat. We are a majority Democratic city council, right? We need somebody who's able to, again, be at the table and negotiate with everybody else with all the other members in that council, right? To make sure that what we need here in 13th, we're able to deliver, right? And right now, we're not getting all the things that are available to us. And look, you can be visible and take photos and be out there, but are you effective? And that is the issue right now, is that the person that's in that seat is not being effective. And that severely affects the district. So again, that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we do have somebody in that seat who can negotiate, who can make sure that, again, more important also, is able to listen to the people of the district, of the community, and make sure that they're being heard. And not just a certain few, but everyone in the community deserves a voice.
Numbers don't lie. If you look at the district is 60% Democrat. So how did we lose a seat to a Republican in a district that's 60% Democrat? It's very simple. The person that was representing us didn't connect with the community and was on the wrong side of major issues, including shelters, including upzoning, including e-bike safety, and other things that are important to the community. I was vice chair for the Democratic County. I worked for Adolfo Carrion when I was 19 as his community liaison. I worked for Scott Stringer. I worked for John Liu. I worked for Ruben Sears Jr. on the BOEDC. So I understand our party, but we have to make sure the issue with the seat is not the party, is the issues and the stance that they're taking on the party. Besides that, I've worked with the head of the Republican Party when I was serving on the bid. He also was serving on the bid. I know the gentleman that runs the Conservative Party. So we have to make sure that we're willing to work with everybody in that community and work together and make sure that we pick issues that are important to the community. The reality is that I stand the best chance at beating Christie in this race. I'm aligned with most of the issues, no matter what party they have. And I don't care if someone's a donkey, an elephant, blue, red, purple, or in between. I care about our community, our Bronx residents, one Bronx, 113th. And I plan to win this primary, and I plan to take back this seat for the Democratic Party.
Okay. Thank you. David, you'll start with this next one. Do you support the rezoning plan for the Bally's Casino Hotel development in Throgsneck?
Yeah. We absolutely need economic growth here in this district. I don't agree that a casino is the best way to deliver that. But it's very difficult, right? Because Bally's, again, like it was said earlier today about Bally's Foundation and Bally's Corporation, right? Bally's Foundation, saving Preston, which is great. Bally's Corporation saying that they're going to invest over $625 million into this district, which is much needed, right? But Holden, again, being able to make sure that we are able to negotiate and make sure that they are putting this in writing, ironclad, that the jobs that they're promising, that the money that they're promising actually gets delivered. And right now, this community says no. But I have been out knocking doors and talking to people, and I understand I've heard people say, well, the only jobs that they're offering are going to be, housekeeper or some sort, but it's hard to tell somebody who really needs to work, who's looking for a paycheck, that, they don't really deserve the housekeeper job. Right? How do you say that? So right now, we have to, again, it's hard to make that decision because I'm not at the table. I don't hear what is happening inside, but I know that, a majority of the community says no. And until I can find out differently at this point in time, I have to say no.
Joel?
There were several forums on this issue. I attended them, and I blatantly spoke out against the Bally Casino. I was part of the Yankee Stadium redevelopment, and it's like the same movie, a different script. We were promised all these great jobs, all this other stuff, and half of the stuff they promised, we never got, and half of the stuff they put in writing, they didn't keep their word. So that status quo, when somebody's coming in trying to promote a new project, they promise you the world, and usually if you get 10% of that, you're lucky. So not only, it's easy to stand down here on the stage and say you're against something, but I spoke at the forum and told the chairman of the board, do what's right. And I told the community board members, elected officials have to get reelected and they need funds to get reelected. You're supposed to be the voice of the community. The community has spoken blatantly. And even though at all these events, they did all these tricks to make it seem, they came out with this fake statistic saying 60% of the community supports the project. You know what I did? I turned to the crowd and I said, community, who here supports this project? Who's here is against it? And the crowd went crazy. And then the chairman of the board told me, oh, this isn't a circus, after they did their whole circus and pony show at Bally's. So I'm against Bally's, the community's against it, and we'll see what happens. My stance could change. I like what they did with Preston, that they saved that land, but the community has spoken. We don't want this casino here. I don't even know why this is even a topic that's being discussed. It's been very clear, not like a few, not back and forth. The majority of the 13th doesn't want a casino in the area. Now what's going on is backroom deals with elected officials, with unions, with corporations, and they're trying to do the go-around like they usually do, instead of listening to the community and the people.
So as it stands now, I cannot take a position supporting a casino in Throgsneck. I live in Throgsneck, just a few blocks away from where the proposed casino is supposed to go. I've talked to many folks in Throgsneck, knocks on a lot of doors in Throgsneck, and I agree. The community is divided. Look, a project like this is going to bring thousands of much-needed jobs to the Bronx. I hear that. It's going to bring, there's a project labor agreement where the construction jobs are going to be prevailing wage jobs. They're going to be, good union jobs with benefits. I don't know what the community benefits agreement is, and I don't know what's in it, and the millions of dollars that are supposed to be coming into the community. Is it going to be earmarked for us on the 13th? Is it going to go to our public schools? Is it going to go to NYCHA housing? Is it going to go to, improve our streets? Is it going to is it going to provide for, resources so we have public safety? We need to be able to negotiate all of those issues because people are concerned. People are concerned about the impact to the environment. People are concerned about the impact to small businesses in our area. People are concerned about, the loss of parkland. People are concerned about, rising crime or the type of crime that a casino can bring to our community. The traffic, the pollution. So these are all real issues that people are concerned about, and we have to take those concerns into account before we, move ahead. That said, we can't always say no to development, and we can't always say no to, growing the economy of our district.
All right, thank you. I'm going to start with you, Joel, on this question.
It's Joel, by the way.
Oh, sorry, Joel. Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Okay. Is the e-scooter program a success? There's been criticism of it, arguments. There's also people arguing that they're left strewn all over the sidewalks. Many say that they're a great program for a transit desert, and others
My
say
man,
that.
I'm not understanding nothing you're saying. Can you start all over? I'm sorry.
Okay, sure. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. The pronunciation, I was just.
Sure. Okay. The e-scooter program.
Oh, the e-scooter
Yep,
program, okay.
yep. There's been a lot of criticism of it.
Yep.
And there are those that support it. Do you support it or are you against it?
I think when it comes to the e-scooters, there was a law passed recently. I don't know if it's passed, but it's being presented. And it says that e-scooter riders should have to meet the same requirement as any other traffic person driving a regular motor vehicle. So I support that. I think e-scooters in our area are being used in a harmful way that challenge some of our seniors and their safety. I think there needs to be more regulations and more accountability, and they need to ask certain communities, do they want them? A lot of times they put in these e-scooters and we lose valuable parking spots that we need in communities that we're already struggling for parking spots. And who's the one really benefiting it? What corporation or what lobbyist reached out to make sure that these certain laws and bills are passed and that they don't have any regulations? That's what I would look at. So I don't say that I oppose e-scooters, but it's an important issue in the 13th. And I do oppose e-scooters being used unsafely and creating a harm to especially our seniors and people in the community. And I think they should be penalized. And if it's a child and they're doing something and there's some sort of penalty, that they're underage and their parents should be penalized if they're riding it in an unsafe way and harming other regular pedestrians and residents.
All right, thank you. Shirley?
I think, look, the e-scooter program, I think, there are a lot of issues with it, right? One, I see mostly kids riding these e-scooters. They're not wearing safety gear. It's unsafe for them. It's unsafe for pedestrians because they're riding on the sidewalk. We have cars that are double parked on bike lanes, and so people can't use the bike lanes with the scooters and the e-bikes because they're being blocked by double and triple parked cars, right? We don't have parking. We live in a transportation desert. Seniors are not going to ride. I'm not going to ride a scooter. Seniors, I'm a senior. Seniors are not going to ride scooters. It's like we need better transportation options in our community. We need, whether it's a small shuttle service for folks to be able to get around, to be able to get to where they need to go, so they don't have to get in a car, they don't have to get in an Uber, and take money out of their pockets to pay for that. the issue is transportation. I think that we have to look at our transportation in a more creative way, and e-scooters is not necessarily the solution to that. And, again, safety is important both for pedestrians who are walking down the street, don't need to be run over by an e-scooter, and for kids who are using, the e-scooters and adults who are using the e-scooters in a way that's unsafe. We have to regulate it better and figure out ways that, we could live with the e-scooters and the e-bikes, in a way that, is good for everyone.
Yeah, it is just last year alone, there were 1.5 million riders for the e-scooter program. So yes, there is a much need for it. We have transportation deserts throughout this district, right? But we have to be able to make sure that we are holding these companies accountable, making sure that they're able to figure out better ways to keep the program safer, right? I understand that, yes, it is a danger when you see people riding on the sidewalk, and they should not be. But that also goes to another issue, right? Because I don't believe that we do have enough bike lanes and safety lanes in this community to make sure that they are not riding on the sidewalks, right? So and I know that our current council member, again, is just, listening to that small minority, right, that she believes that she governs for and wants to get rid of the program completely, which I think would be a real harm to a lot of people in this district that actually do rely on that scooter to get back and forth to school, work, and things of that nature. So, yeah, but we do have to find ways to make it much safer, holding people accountable. And yes, and the new law that is now holding riders accountable and keeping them to make sure that they are, abiding by the same laws that motor vehicles are, I think that's a good start, but we need to go much further.
Leslie's law, right? Yeah. It's Leslie's law. The law is Leslie's law, by the way, if you guys want to support it.
Okay, next question, beginning with Shirley, is do you support?
Priscilla's, I'm sorry. Priscilla's law.
Oh, okay, yes. Is, do you support congestion pricing? And if elected, would you aim to discourage the number of drivers in the East Bronx and increase the use of public transit?
Well, first of all, we have to have better public transportation options, because right now in many parts of our district, people rely on their cars. There aren't good transportation options. I live in Throgsneck. I live at the end of Throgsneck. There's maybe two express buses that go into the city. There aren't any options that go anywhere else. You could take the 40 and the 42 bus or the 8 bus to Westchester Square to catch the train there, again, to go to the city. But there's not much else. So, we all have to get in our cars to go to work, to go to the doctor, to go grocery shopping, and those are all serious issues. Congestion pricing in Manhattan, if you have to take the express bus to Manhattan to get to downtown Manhattan, with all the congestion that existed from Midtown down, it would take at least an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes to get there. Now with congestion pricing, it has gone down, and people could actually get to work in like 45 minutes, to an hour, because you don't have the bumper to bumper traffic trying to get to where you need to go in the city. And many of the people that live in the district, they do work in the city. But again, I think congestion pricing, has been working and has reduced congestion in the city. Money is supposed to go into the MTA to improve public transit. But at the same time, there are people we need more exemptions for people who need to drive in Manhattan and need to use their cars to get to downtown areas of the city.
Yeah. It- Congestion price, and I know people hate tolls, they do. But when you look at the data now, it is working, right? It is, the congestion's down, the transportation times are down, noise pollution is down, so it's really effectively working. And I know that there are some bills that are out there that are trying to be pushed by our local electeds to possibly offset some of the charge for the congestion by lowering the bridge tolls, things of that nature, right? But I take public transportation. I live on City Island, and it is, it's one bus on, one bus off, right? But I encourage public transportation, right? And I think the ability for us to get the money from the congestion pricing to make sure that we are putting that money towards our public transportation and encouraging people to do that. Look, I get that some people have to use their car to get into Midtown, right? But that's not always necessarily the case, right? People just choose to drive. And I know that there are lots of people out in Throgs Neck and Morris Park and places like that are out in the district that don't have cars, right? So we have to make sure that we are investing heavily in public transportation, and congestion pricing is just one of those effective ways that we're able to do that.
I think for the first time, I have to disagree with both my opponents. I don't support congestion pricing. I think it's an additional tax and an insult to us that live in the Bronx and the outer boroughs. What's the real premise of congestion pricing? Is to say that we have to pay an extra toll, almost like third-class citizens, to go into the city. If they want to do that, okay, when they want to come to Yankee Stadium, let's charge them an extra amount to go to a Yankee game or to Botanical Garden or to the Bronx Zoo. Those companies will never allow that because it will be an insult to the residents in Manhattan and it will hurt the money that those institutions make. So I don't like the premise there's a Bronx site where I'm already taxed up the kazoo when I go to the store, when I buy anything, have my check. Now I got to pay an additional amount to go into the city as if I'm a third-class citizen. Everybody says that it's working in these studies. I don't know about that. Numbers could be manipulated. I drive into the city all the time, and every time I drive into the city, there's congestion. This is a way for them to tax and take our hard-working dollars, and it's wrong. And if they want to charge us to go into the city, then I feel like they should pick to come to the Bronx when they want to come to Botanical Gardens, the Bronx Zoo, or Yankee Stadium.
All right, next question. We start with you, David. Mayor Eric Adams' City of Yes initiative aims to modernize zoning regulations across New York City to facilitate housing development in every neighborhood. Do you support the policy, and do you have any concerns about it?
Sure. I mean, I do support, because look, we do need housing, right? But I do have those same concerns that if we don't have somebody that's able to be in the seat to negotiate these so-called developments, then we're going to lose out, right? We need to make sure that, again, we are holding people, developers accountable, making sure that the developments that are being considered are not going to change the fabric of this district, and by certainly to make sure that we are getting true affordable housing and not just some, thing that they're calling affordable housing that obviously ends up completely unaffordable for anybody in this district. Look, I am raising my 17-year-old son here. I want him to at least have the opportunity. He can choose whatever he wants to do, but if he wants to stay here, I want him to be able to do that, be able to afford to stay here. And no, it's hard to not have concerns when we have dealt with politicians and electeds, in the past that have said one thing and then gone down and done and did something completely different. So we have to make sure that we have somebody in the seat that you can be hold everybody accountable, including themselves.
Joel?
The city could be a city of yes, but if I'm elected to represent the 13th council district, which I plan on being, the 13th is going to be a city of no. I don't support the city of yes. I don't support those projects. I think that that's a land grab for the Fortune Society and some of the other developers. We're going to have affordable housing because I'm a developer right now. My family has developed 3 charter schools, over $100 million in development. We're building affordable housing. So I know about affordable housing and development, and me representing this district, I'm going to make sure we have affordable housing, but it's not going to be based on some citywide program that has all these loopholes and other things and creates housing that's not affordable. Point blank, period.
Shirley?
We can't be the city of no if we don't have alternatives to solving the housing crisis. This is a bold step to try to solve a crisis that has been in existence for many, many years, particularly in this district. We are, what did you say, 39th in building, affordable housing or building housing. We need to build more housing here. We need to build, housing that's truly affordable. And the only way to do that is by, changing, there had to be a change in some of these antiquated, zoning laws that, doesn't permit the building of housing. So we needed to do that. Like the city needed to do that in order to allow for more housing. And I agree. We have to build housing that's quality housing, that's affordable for, working families in all levels of income. We have to have housing to get people out of homeless shelters. A majority of people that are in shelters are families with children. Those children deserve stability, and they deserve to live in a home. And they deserve to be, not live on the streets. So we need a lot of different kinds of housing to support our communities, to support us here in the 13th district. And by the way, not every middle class, 60% of the people here are renters. Not every middle class family owns a home here, okay? I'm privileged to own my home, but I was able to buy my home when it was still affordable to buy a home here. It's unaffordable for people to buy homes here now. So we have to come up with solutions.
Thank you. Next question, beginning with Joelle. Major crime in the 45th precinct is up 12% this year, with a large jump in burglaries and stolen vehicles. What would be your plan to clamp down on crime?
I think we need to have more communication with the police department. I think that the youth and the community needs to see the police department as partners. Right now in the city, we have this relationship where police officers sometimes are seen as adversarial with the community. But I want to sponsor more things like I've done in the area of the Bronx, where I have my nonprofit basketball youth tournaments where the local youth play basketball with the police members. I want to encourage more people to go to roll calls, which is open to the public. Anybody that lives in the community could go into a police department, meet the local beat officers, meet the CO, meet the captain. So we need to have better communication between the police department and the youth and key stakeholders in our community. And we need to do what's been being done in our community. If you look at some of the great organizations in our community, like Van Ness, like Pelham Parkway, they invite the police officers to all their meetings. So I have the number of the NGO, the person, the local commander. I have access. Everybody needs to have that access. So instead of us promoting propaganda, we need to promote access to these police officers so that people know how to reach out to the local police officers and see this as one community, one Bronx, one 13th. We all want the same thing. We all want safety in our community. We all want our children to be able to play outside. But we need to foster programs that facilitate that and not just labeling people in a community. And the same thing I said before, less than 5% commits 100% of the crime. So we need to focus on gang units, on petty crimes, on quality of life, and let's police the criminals, not the rest of the community for just doing normal things.
So look, we need, our police precincts need, the resources to be able to deal with, petty crimes. And, things that people consider petty crimes. I talked to, my neighbor had her car stolen right in front of her house. I had my car broken into right in my driveway on my property. Once that happens to you, you lose your sense of security, right? It happened right in front of your house. So we have to find ways and bring the resources into the district that are gonna, prevent these crimes from happening. It's not just about arresting criminals. It's about how do we create deterrence to crime? Also, we need to get to the root causes of crime. And I agree with Joel. We need more programs for young people in our schools. We need more community centers. We need places where young people could go so that they have activities, they have paths to learning, all of these things. We also need good jobs. Like, people need good jobs so that they're not falling into crime. They're not joining gangs. They're not, we need to create more good jobs in this community, in the Bronx. And, that's lacking here. There's so many young people that graduate from high school and they have nowhere to go. Kids that are aging out of the foster care system that have nowhere to go. And so what are they doing? They may be committing crimes because there's nothing else for them. So this is a much more complicated question, right? It's like we need to get to the root of what's causing people to commit crimes. We need to reduce crime in the district and throughout the Bronx. And we need to resource, our police.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most what each of my colleagues have said, but the most important thing, I think, is by landmass, the 45th precinct and 49th precinct are the largest precincts in New York City. They don't have enough resources, right? They are spread out, and I know on City Island, it takes, people call for these things, and it takes hours sometimes for them to get there. And it's not because they don't want to get there, it's because they don't have the resources to do that, right? So we need somebody to make sure that we go down. Listen, the NYPD budget is close to $7 billion. I think we need to figure out a way of reallocating some of those funds to make sure the precincts like the 45th get everything that they need so they can serve this district. That's it.
All right, terrific. This question starts with you, Shirley. Yeah, okay. Actually, this is going to be our final question given time constraints. Shirley, it's over the next 4 years, what specific policies or initiatives would you implement to make New York City a more livable place for people as they age, particularly in areas such as transportation, public safety, and accessible public spaces?
So, I'm aging myself. And look, I think, like I said before, our seniors rely very heavily on public transportation. Not all of them can drive, especially seniors who are, lower income. We need more access to, health care for people who are aging. We need housing that's affordable for our seniors. I spoke to someone recently who would, She can't afford to stay in her house. It's too much for her to have her house, but she wants to stay in the district, and she can't afford, to buy an apartment. She can't afford, she makes too much. She earns too much money because she has a decent pension to be able to get, into an affordable housing program, but she doesn't make enough to buy something or even rent in the district. I mean, it's very hard, aging in this city, because we need the services and the resources that, quite frankly, it's hard for, seniors in this district in particular to be able to access, whether it's mental health services for our seniors, healthcare, food. How many seniors do we see, waiting on food pantry lines because of food insecurity? There are so many things that we have to resolve and so many resources that we have to bring into this district so that seniors who live here can live with dignity, in the district.
David, and let me know if you need me to repeat the question.
Could you please?
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. Okay. Over the next 4 years, what specific policies or initiatives would you implement to make New York City a more livable place for people as they age, particularly in areas such as transportation, public safety, and accessible public spaces?
Yeah. You have to be able to, again, have the seat at the table and to be able to work with the rest of the council to make sure that you are getting the funds allocated. If we are not at that table, the budget, there's actually budget that we miss out on. There's discretionary funds that we miss out on. And I understand, especially when it comes to seniors, I've seen it. Look, I have been delivering food for the last 2 decades, primarily to seniors and to NYCHA. Not, and again, I do that not because it's something that I get paid for or anything like that, but I do it because there's a need, and I see it every day, and it hurts. So there are things that we need to make sure that we provide, and that all starts with having ability to sit and get the money, the funds needed to do that. When it comes to transportation, look, I have people, again, when it comes to seniors, they don't really, don't have the ability to a car, right? But I know, speaking to people in Bronx Neck who want just to go to Bay Plaza, have to take 3 buses to do that. I mean, that is not fair, right? So they pay the one fare, they get the transfer, then they have to pay another fare, right? And it just can't be. So there are lots of different things that need to be done in the next 4 years that address all of these things, but it starts with making sure that we have somebody in that seat to get that stuff done.
One of the things that I would try to implement immediately and find funding for is a trolley to take people from certain parts of the area. The 13th district, like some of the people have mentioned here, is very spread out. It's very difficult to get from City Island to Bronx Neck to Morris Park to Van Ness to Pelham Parkway to Pelham Gardens. So I think we need some type of free shuttle bus or trolley that will let people move within the neighborhoods because of the demographics. The community is so spread out, and even campaigning, a lot of times my workers and regular people, they just can't get around. So I think we need some type of free shuttle or free trolley. The other thing I would try to implement is some sort of subsidy. I feel that once you pass a certain age, we're one of the most taxed city in the country. And that's why the quality of living is so expensive. Why could subsidies only have to be for low income people? Why can't there be a subsidy that if you're over 62 or 65 and you're still working, you pay less in income tax, and a city tax, and a state tax? If you're a renter, some sort of subsidy, it could be a small amount, $50, $100 reduction on your rent, or if you're a homeowner on your mortgage. There needs to be more programs that benefit the people that have built into this city. The senior citizens, if all the senior citizens moved out of New York City today, we would go bankrupt. This is what they don't tell you. Our Medicare, our Medicaid, our pensions, all the programs, they're the ones. That's why nobody wants to address it. It's like the elephant in the room, because the baby boomers pay the majority of the funds and the collections that we take as a city. We need to give that group a break. They've earned it. They've worked their whole life. They've given to the city. They've bled for 10 or 20 years. Now that they're older, they earn the right to some sort of reduction or some sort of subsidy to help lower their expenses and improve their quality of life. Joel Rivera, your next city council. We good?
Yeah, just the closing statements, 1 minute closing statements, starting with you, David.
Okay,
No pressure.
no pressure.
It's a minute.
Okay.
It's a minute. So, again, like I said earlier, that I'm a lifelong Bronxite, raised in Throgs Neck, live on City Island, but I owned a home in Country Club and rented in Pelham Bay. I have been here 51 years of my almost 60 years next month of my life. I've dedicated that time to this community, do mutual aid, organizing food deliveries, clothing drives for asylum seekers, and climate resilience campaigns for coastal communities like City Island and Edgewater. I work in finance, but I've never stopped fighting for my neighborhood, whether through volunteer work with the Boy Scouts, supporting animal rescues, or helping establish public resources like the Yank Refrigerator on City Island or the Community Refrigerator on Allerton. I have never held a elected office, but I've done the work of a public servant. And I'm running again because our community deserves leadership that is rooted in compassion, transparency, and equity. Thank you.
I fought my whole adult life for the South Bronx and the High Bridge area. And while I was doing that, the community that I live in has dramatically changed. And the changes are not a good change. We like our community. We have our slice of the American dream in the 13th district, most of us, even though some of us are still struggling. And we need to make sure that we have someone that represents us that's not a career politician. I've worked for career politicians. They come, they give a speech, you see them during election time, and nothing ever changes. It's time to have someone represent the 13th that's just like me and you, that cares about the community, that knows the local issues, that thinks about the things that you think about. And I think it's pretty obvious that I'm the best candidate to represent the 13th, win this Democratic primary, and win the general election against Christie. And with your help and support, we'll make that happen, and we'll have a better 13th and a better Bronx.
Shirley?
My parents bought a home here 45 years ago when it was still affordable for working class people to own a home here. And I bought my home here nearly 13 years ago when someone with a single parent with, a middle income could afford to buy a home here. And I've talked to many people and it's become so unaffordable to live here. My neighbors struggle. They have they each have 2 jobs and a side hustle to be able to make the mortgage, put their kids through school, 2 of which are gonna go to college next year, applying for colleges next year. People are struggling in this district and we can't ignore that. We can't continue to ignore the fact that people need better housing options, better transportation options. And I'm the person that have a track record to bring good jobs, negotiate pensions, bring healthcare to thousands and thousands of workers in this city. And I'm the best choice, I believe, to win in November against the Republican incumbent.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you to the candidates, and thank you for everyone for coming out this evening. All right, good night.